Tell them we get that. Welcome back, Blue Liners. Today, Adam and I are here. We're going to start something new. When I first started this channel, I really just wanted to go fishing and video it, but as we've got into it now, almost 2 years, we get a ton of questions, emails, text messages, or not text messages, emails, Facebook messages, YouTube comments, wanting to know about how we fish certain rods or reels, how we rig things up, what flies we use. So even though it wasn't ever something I thought I would be doing, we're going to do a series of how-to videos. And these videos are actually going to be brought to you by JP Ross. He also was interested in doing some videos of how we fish. So we've got some of his gear that he sent us, and we're going to be showing you today. This first video is going to be how we rigged a rod up. And biggest thing about small stream rods, you're going to you fish them differently than you would a bigger rod. So we're going to rig them a little different. So some of you guys out there that are blue liners from way back, this might be old hat to you, but I also know there's a whole lot of young fishermen and also a lot of even older fishermen that are just getting into it that don't necessarily have ever done it before or know how to rig their rods. So we're about to break into this, and this is going to be the first video of several, maybe 3 or 4 videos, and we're just going to throw these out as we make them every week or two till we get the series done. Won't be we also keep a regular video of us fishing going, but this is just going to be a little how-to and in-depth look at what we do. So, all right, guys. Step 1, we got out this really cool Nirvana on the fly reel. I want to check out the back of it right there. So this is going to be the rod that we put on the 6.5 foot S-glass rod that JP's calling the Blue Liner. We're going to use this reel he sent. It's a pretty sweet little reel, but we also going to have some backing. It's going to go on first. This is 20-pound test. You could also use 12-pound test. We happen to have some 20-pound tests, so I don't really think it matters at all. If you have 12, use it. If you have 20, use it. But that's what we're going to use, this 20, because we have it. The good thing about this reel is it doesn't have any holes in it, so you're not really ever going to see the backing, so it's not really going to be whether it looks pretty or not. And plus, we're going to have a fly line that's going to go on after that. This is the Beaver Meadow from JP Ross. This is a 2-weight, weight forward. This one is 60 foot. So if you get a reel and the instructions talk about a lot of fly lines are 90 feet, you might want to add a little extra backing to make up that difference. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to put on the backing and then the fly. So I'm going to go ahead and start getting some of this line out here. I just got it twisted up. There we go. So the knot that I use to put the backing on, we'll get there. Let me get it ran through first. There we go. You can see this. It's going to be called an arbor knot. It's a really simple knot. If you're going to go catch tarpon, it might not be your knot. Catching a 6-inch wild brook trout, this will work. First thing you do is just tie an overhand knot in the end here that's already ran through. Then we're just going to go and make a second overhand knot. Catch that and bring it through. Second hand overhand knot. So you have the knot still up here and the knot you're tying. And when you pull this down tight, there we go. Those 2 knots pull down tight, and that is what we got. So I'm going to trim this tag end up. If you have a pair of nippers, you can do this pretty well. And there you have it. And then we're just going to take this and wind it on. I'm going to stop for a second. You can see on the back of the reel, it's got this radius there where it's put on. That's about how much backing I'm going to stick on it. If you're not sure, I would estimate it somewhere between about 30 and 50 yards is what this reel is going to hold. Did not have paperwork with it though to see that, but that's my guess from a whole lot of experience. It's always better to put a little too much backing on and then your line be full instead of not put enough backing on. And then when you put your fly line on, there's nowhere near enough backing. So it's almost better if you don't have a way to measure it, to put a little too much on, you can always pull the fly line back off and fix that problem. But we're gonna put about that much on. I think this will work. We'll just put this back. So I'm just gonna cut this off out here so I have plenty to work with. Boop. And this right here, so this is the fly line we're gonna put on. Like I said, this one is a 60-foot line. A lot of commercial lines are gonna be 90, so just be aware of that. So we pull it out here. Good looking. Now this right here is quite possibly the best possible way to ruin your day.
I think your instructions say take your time.
Yeah, you can really get frustrated if you don't take your time taking this apart. And this is in real time, and so it's been a long time since I ran one out like this, but JP's saving the environment by not having plastic reel line holders or fly line holders, so I can appreciate that. If you had one laying around, it would work. Right here, this sticker, this is the part you attach to the reel. It actually says attach to reel. Pretty much every fly line I know is going to have that. Oh. Yep. So we're just going to take this and slowly unwind it. If you were to lose that sticker, the front end of the line actually has a loop in it, a welded loop, so that would tell you that was the front.
We're going to go over the pros and cons of leaving the loop on and how we rig ours with loop off.
Try not to get in a hurry here, mess up the last 10 feet of it. I was trying.
Man, look how it thins down.
Yeah. We'll actually talk about this for a minute. You should be able to see a physical representation. When people talk about a weight forward line, it actually has a running line on the back and then a head or more weight and size to the front. And then it thins out again towards the tip. You can actually see a physical difference there between the white and the orange line. That's going to be the head of it versus the very tip. So that's what they're talking about. Alrighty. Let me see. Okay, so now we got this nail knot tool. This is a not sponsored here, but this is a tie fast nail knot tool. I've owned this thing for 20 plus years. It's not something you use a ton, but it's always something good to keep in your pack, your vest, your shirt pocket, whatever you fish with. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna take this backing and we're just gonna tie a nail knot with the backing. Here again, there's other knots you can use to attach the fly line for small stream fishing. This is the easiest one. So you're gonna put it there, this tool, you just lay it on top, hold it with your thumb, and you're gonna wrap around it 5 times. 3, 4, 5. You can take the tag in and stick it right back through the front, pull it over to the side. Then you want to lubricate this somehow. Ooh, I about pulled it off. You want to lubricate this somehow, and the easiest way I know, just put a little spit on it. So then we're going to take the end of the fly line that said attach, just right here. We're going to run that from the front up till we can catch it with our thumb right here. Wet that up good and slide that knot off. We're going to slide it down towards the end of the fly line here. You don't want to get to the very end because you're going to cinch this thing down good. So once you get there, you can pull opposite directions. and you have a really nice inline knot that's pretty strong. This should hold any trout you get into in the continental US anyway. I'm just going to trim those tag ends off very clean. I guess I'm a little paranoid. I always leave just a tiny bit on the fly line side, so if it cinches up, it won't slide off the end. We're going to talk about this in a minute, though. On the leader side, we don't want to do this, but on the back end, we got her good and tight. You could trim that up a little better, probably, but so now I'm going to stand back up and just reel this up. While you're reeling this, you just want to move your fingers back and forth just to get it evenly on there. Here again, I'll plug local fly shops across America. Most of them have a line winder. You can take the line and the back into them, and they'd be more than happy to do this for you while you buy some flies from your local fly shop and get some local information. One thing to also remember is if you wind this on pretty tight initially, it's never quite going to go back on there that tight after you strip it all off fishing, so you don't want it tight. Looks like we're going to have plenty of space. Oh yeah. Probably could have went even more backing. No, we're in the orange part here. That's the head of the line. That's what's going to take up the most space as you wind it up. Got a cramp in my finger. Alright. That's coming along. And there we go. We got the line on the reel set up for left-hand retrieve. Honestly, probably could have went another 25-30 yards of backing if we wanted to, but for small stream fishing, you're not getting in the backing. It's kind of a moot point, but it also affects the radius of the reel. But I think this will be okay. You don't want it so tight that it doesn't spin good. You could probably win a little more, but if you'll notice here, Adam's talking about this loop. It's going to be what we talk about next, but also the reason I have it set up for left-handed, people always ask this. Most people spin fishing may use their right hand. Saltwater fishermen a lot of time use their right hand. For trout fishermen, if you're a right-handed trout fisherman, you set the hook and you're fighting the fish, you don't want to have to switch hands to reel. So on a 6-inch fish, it doesn't come into play. If you catch a little bigger fish, it does. As I've said before on the channel, I used to guide for trophy fish in Georgia, still do a little bit. And there you might have a 10-minute fight on your hands with a big rainbow, and you don't want to have to switch those hands. But if you like to reel right-handed, you can set it up right-handed. If you want to reel left-handed, this setup. Most of the time you have to swap something internally in the reel if it's some kind of disc reel. So that's that. Any questions, Adam?
Nope.
Next thing we're going to do is talk about leader setup.
I think on this, all you have to do is flop that thing over. That little brass.
Oh yeah, here?
To the other side.
To the other side, that's sweet.
Yep.
Yeah, on a click and paw reel, there's nothing to get hung up in there, so it's not a big a deal. So, but we're gonna move along.
That S-glass.
You're filming?
Yeah. I wonder what he was doing just then, getting a little oil on off his face on the.
Yeah, this is a trick I used to tell my clients was the first free tip of the trip. If you'll take the end of your rod, you can buy ferrule wax, and it used to be about $6 or $8 a tube. Or unless you wear a lot of makeup or something, you got a little natural grease there on your nose. And what that does is when you put the rod together, it kind of keeps it a nice fit, but it also makes it pop apart really easy. And I used to tell people you can never really appreciate this till you drive home with your 9-foot 6 weight stuck out the back window of your vehicle because you can't get it apart.
Been there.
Been there. And then when you get home, you end up going to the ER because one of these eyes break as you try to pull it apart and you cut yourself really bad. Been there. So taking the 4 seconds it takes to rub the side of your nose with your rod, get a little natural oil, that will keep the rod together while you're fishing well, but it makes it come apart easy. So we might talk about that in another episode one day about how to get your rod apart if it's stuck. But on this rod, if you can look in close here, this rod also comes with dots. A lot of rods these days do, a lot of rods don't. I think it's a pretty neat thing to make sure all your stuff lined up there. So you could, if you have a rod you're already fishing, you could always use a little bit like a white Sharpie or something like that to put that on there. So we got the S-Class. It's a really, really pretty rod. We're going to stick the reel on it here, and then we're going to talk about rigging the rod. Just want that nice and firm, not crazy, just nice and firm. Tighten her up. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pull off enough line to rig the rod up. And I used to always tell my clients, you can always tell the rookie fisherman in the parking lot, because he's going to be trying to snake this line up through the eyes. And he gets up here and drops it, and boof, gone. Happens a lot. So what you want to do is come down here to the end of your fly line, about 6-8 inches, and just double that up. And then run the double part up through the eyes. And if you'll see, we'll get to the same thing and drop it. It's got enough to hang up and it doesn't fall back. That'll save you some frustration. So let me finish rigging this real quick. It's also good to make sure you get all the eyes. Anybody that's ever rigged a fly rod has missed an eye at some point.
It's real fun to call your friends out on it when you spot it.
Yeah. Hopefully while it's their turn to fish, then you get a chance. Yeah. So we got this rigged up, so I'm just going to lay it down here for now. And what we're going to do is, next important thing, we had this loop already on here. This makes life really easy, especially if you're a beginning fisherman. You don't have to know any knots, so that makes it really easy. But we have different assortment of leaders here, and I'm going to talk about this for a second. This one here, if you zoom in, you can see that this is a 6.5 foot leader, and this is, I think it's for JP, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, this was sent by JP. 6.5 foot floating line. We'll tear into that in a minute.
That's a weird.
This one's actually is a kind of a weird leader. This is a poly leader, and you end up adding tippet to the end of it. Yep. It's got a tippet ring and all that. Kind of unique. That could be a different video.
I said just brought it for comparison.
To be honest with you, any kind of, a lot of people use furled leaders. They probably have their goods and bads. Some people love them, some people hate them. I've used them in the past. Probably not my favorite type of leader. They also, if you're dry fly fishing, they seem to do okay. Maybe even something like maybe some streamer fishing, maybe. But if you nymph fish a lot, especially two nymphs, if you get a knot in that thing, holy smokes, buddy, it's bad. So we're going to move on to the normal type of leader you buy, whether you buy this thing at Walmart or your very best high-end fly shop. It's going to be this one's a 7.5 foot leader, and this one is a 6 pound at 4X. And for a lot of new fishermen, it gets really confusing on the X. Fortunately, this leader, maybe we can zoom in and see this good. It has a chart to explain the X's to you. And basically what happens is you start at 0X, and the tip of that 0X is 0.29. And as you go down or up in X's, the 7X, the tip gets smaller. And normally the pound test gets smaller. So a 7X leader in this brand is about 2 pound test. It'll run somewhere around 2, 3, 4 pound test. And the 0X here, this is 14. A lot of places it runs 10 to 14 pounds for 0X. So all that really means is most of the time when you're trout fishing, you're going to buy a leader somewhere between 3 and 7X. I would say 3 and 6X most of the time. We typically use, and I've used these for years, not sponsored. This is a Rio Powerflex trout leader. They're 7.5 foot, 4X at 6 pound test. I use this a lot as my base leader. This is actually a 3-pack, $13. I'm not sure how old that is, but you get 3 of them. And a lot of people change leaders every single time they go fishing. That's fine. I actually reuse a leader a lot and then add tippet, but we can talk about that at another time. So when you go to buy leaders, you're going to buy them by a length, be it 6 foot, 7.5, 9, 12 foot. Then you're going to buy it by an X, and that's how strong it is. So if you go buy trout leaders, unless you're catching really monster fish that aren't real smart or throwing big streamers, your normal trout fishing, stay somewhere between 4, 5, 6X, and you should do pretty good. So with these, when you buy a new leader, I'll use this one. When you buy a new leader, it's going to come wrapped just like that fly line was, except in reverse. Actually, it's not reverse. The end has a loop in it. And you're going to undo that first. This is also a solid way to ruin $4. So you're just going to keep unwinding. You're just going to keep unwinding, and right when you think you're done the last time, go about one more time, then basically it'll all fall out. And you have your 7.5 foot leader. If you just take it and kind of hold it between your hands, give it a little pull, it kind of stretches it out, get your working length pretty well. Alright, so 7.5 foot leader, fly line loop. They come with loops on each end. See that good?
Hold it up. Your shirt's white. There you go. Yep.
So I've heard this basically going to go loop to loop. I've heard people call this a friendship knot, blah blah, but it's a loop to loop. So you take the loop of the fly line, loop of the leader. You're going to take the loop of the leader over the loop of the fly line. So it runs up and down it like this. Then you're going to bend your leader in half, a few inches down, stick it through the loop, pull the whole leader through. And then you're just going to tighten these up until the two loops come together. And that gives you an easy connection, loop to loop. So I'm going to take this time right here to show you. This is a 6.5 foot rod. If you had a 7.5 foot rod, it'd be good. So right now we've got this 7.5 foot leader loop to loop connected to our fly line. It works fine if you're casting. But most small streams, if you watch any of our videos, you don't do a whole lot of regular casting. So I'm going to show you, Adam's going to try to film this here with this background. What happens is when you go to bow and arrow cast, you have a short line and you end up pulling the leader inside the end of the rod here. And what happens is you get ready to cast, this thing goes up, and as you can tell, it hangs on the eyes with that loop to loop connection. So what that does, it stops you there. You can see where there it caught at the end. And we'll come back to me. A lot of times when you're bow and arrow casting, you're constantly pulling that line in short. You shoot it out, then you have to come back and get it back short. And the whole time, if you'll look down at the end of the rod here, it's hung up again. And that just really, to me, it's frustrating. It's really frustrating. That hangs up constantly all day. So, finally got it back out of there. So we're going to do a video. One of our videos is going to be on bow and arrow casting, so I'm not going to spend a ton of time doing that today. But just know, if you have a short rod, you're going to bow and arrow cast a lot on a tiny creek. A loop-to-loop connection may not be the best bet. So we're going to show you what we prefer on that, and we'll go ahead and come back to the table here and do that. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to reverse the process of the loop-to-loop. Take that off. I'll leave my leader over here so I don't lose it. I'm going to take my nips, and you can see where the welded loop's at there. I don't think it really matters. I'm just going to come in behind that and cut her off square. A lot of times a lot of your older fishermen can remember when fly lines were hollow and you put the little eyelets in the end. If you'll look today, they have a braided cord. They're not hollow anymore, so those little eyelets don't work very well or at all. So with that said, we know we have this 7.5 foot leader. And we're going to measure this joker out, but I think we can all agree, for the sakes of this, if we cut about a foot off of a 7.5 foot, even in North Georgia math, that's going to give us about 6.5 feet, right? So we're going to do that. We're just going to go ahead and go and cut this off. Boop. So now we have a leader. It's just a straight monofilament leader. And the reason you want to cut off the back instead of the front, because the last, 8, 10, 12 inches, whatever, of your front is actually the size of your leader. That's your 4-6 pound test. You don't, if you cut that back, you're just cutting it into thick stuff, and that's not going to be the best. There's really no reason to do that. Always cut it from the back.
It won't unfold.
Yeah, it's that, and you're going to end up tying tippet back on to be able to tie your small flies on. So I don't know why anybody would, but just don't cut it from the front. Cut, if you're going to have a 6-foot rod, you might cut 18 inches off the back. Just try to match that length of rod. So like I said, we have a 6.5 foot rod here. We have that. So we're going to break out the handy nail knot tool again.
Yep, let's go.
So we're going to use this nail knot tool you've seen us use last time. We're going to do it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 loops. Have those nice and neat on top of each other. Back to front. Pull that off to the side and hold it with your finger. Take the fly line from the front, stick it up, hold it good here. Throw some lubrication on it. Slide that off. You can actually see this one's got a little loop there. You can use your fingernails to kind of clean that up. You want to clean that up. There we go. Now you can see how clean that is. Nice barrel knot. This is where a good pair of nippers and not your forceps I brought today would come in handy, but we'll trim it up good. And how I left a little tiny piece of tag in on that last one. On this one, you don't want that. You want it pretty smooth. Everybody pray it sticks. 1, 2, 3. There we go. So I want to, if you'll come in close here, I'll just see against my hand maybe. That is a really smooth, really clean knot. One thing we don't have today, Adam and I talked about, they actually make something called knot sense. And it's made to put on fishing lines to help the knots. If you put a little bit on that and just roll it between your fingers, it'll clean it up really well. So let's get the rod and we'll go back over here and talk about what this does for you. 2 things it does for you. Number 1 is, now when I hold the end of my fly down here towards my fly to bow and arrow cast, if Adam will film right there, I still have several inches of fly line out because I've shortened my leader. You can also do this with the loop and loop system, but the difference becomes right here is when I pull inside for a really close bow and arrow cast. Now you can film this. When I pull my line out, it pops through really easy. We're gonna try this, get close here. You can see if I pull it, just pops right through. If you put a little knot sense on there, it'd be even better. You can really smooth that knot up a lot. And that thing would not, the biggest thing, it will not catch up. If that thing gets pulled in the end of the rod, it's gonna pull right back out. So you clean that up, make that a really pretty knot, nice nail knot. Put a little bit of knot sense or some type of knot glue on there of your choice. Really make it smooth. That thing will never hang up. You'll never even notice it. And especially on, I would say the Beaver Meadow 5-foot rod, you're gonna have a pretty, that's gonna be made for really tight conditions. And if you got that line on there, it'll pull right through every time. So that's how we prefer it.
Too is your this is, you can't just replace the leader every time you go fishing, else you'll be chewing your fly line back.
Along those lines, just we'll talk about real quick. If you do break back your leader, basically I'm going to retie it, and I always carry tippet spools 3, 4, 5, 6X in my vest. So if I get up there and I lose my fly 2 or 3 times or bite off or change, then I'll just add another foot back on here. And we can talk about that at a different time, what loop and all that, but you can add tippet back on here. And this part up here, I actually have a reel, and I'm not too proud to say this, but it's probably got a leader that's about 10 years old on it. It's on a little 5.5-foot rod that y'all saw me fish a good bit, but that reel that it's on, I've used that leader because I literally just put a new piece of 6X on it. I've actually rebuilt it from probably 4 to 5 to 6X over the years, but the back of your leader is called the butt. This butt section will last a really long time with you rebuilding it. So while a lot of people might change leaders every time, and if you're fishing a 9-foot 6-weight or something, you know, you might do that, but on a small stream rod, you can leave this butt section a really long time. You could probably fish almost a whole season with the same leader, just adding tippet to it on the front end.
See if we can get us a pretty cast. Think you can get us a pretty cast out through there?
Yeah, how you want it.
Yeah, let's step over here and see if you can cast to the.
This way?
Yeah, to the.
The good thing about this rod is I have enough back cast space. Try to throw it over in that hole in that log over there. I don't know if I have enough back cast space. No. But we'll come in here to show you a little preview we're going to get to. But your bow and arrow cast, there's a lot of ways of doing bow and arrow cast, but if you'll watch this rod.
Next episode.
Next episode. We'll actually do that. We'll cut that.
Give them a little. That way they'll want to watch the next.
I'm going to start over there and we'll cut it, okay? Yeah. So, this is how we rigged the rod. We started off, we put backing on, put the fly line on, showed you 2 different ways to hook your leader up. So, in the next episode, we're going to talk about how to bow and arrow cast this rod. And that's something that a lot of my clients, when I showed it to them, they wanted to bow and arrow cast. A lot of people really like it. If you've ever shot a traditional bow or a recurve bow, you'll probably like it. So it looks something like this. We're going to hold, today I'm just going to hold the fly line. You good? Mm-hmm. We're going to come forward with our reel rolled up, pull our line up, pick us a target, pine cone there, and shoot it out there.
One more time.
So we're going to take the rod, roll the reel upside down, hold the line up, pick our target, and shoot our line out there. If you don't go poo, it won't go to the right place.
Right. Sound effects are included.
Sound effects are free. So that's how you rig up your rod. We appreciate JP Ross sending this stuff to show you how to do this. Check out his web page. He's got a lot of really neat stuff on there. This is the Blue Liner. It's got this really nice Nirvana reel. Nirvana on the fly reel. Got his fly lines, 60 foot, made for small streams. Got a big head, it rolls over really well. So you can roll cast, make short distance cast where it loads really well. A lot of cool stuff coming your way.
Alrighty folks, next episode inbound, y'all stay tuned.